At this point, it's tradition that I do a video ranking all of my luxury purchases from the past year, and it might feel premature for me to start wrapping 2024 up, but believe it or not, we are halfway through November, and I feel like it's going to be Christmas before we know it. Not to mention that I don't really see myself buying anything more substantial before the year ends, so I figured we might as well do it now, especially if you are toying with the idea of adding any one of these pieces to your collection. I want you to have a better idea for whether or not these pieces worked for me, which ones did, which ones didn't, which ones I'm glad I invested my money in, and which ones I should have just passed on, because obviously unboxings are really fun to watch, but I don't really feel they give you an accurate picture of what pieces will actually add value to your collection. So I hope that these updated reviews will do that. I hope they will give you a better idea for what pieces are worth your money and which ones you should just skip for now, at least which pieces I should have skipped. So without further ado, if you'd like to sum up the past year with me through some of my best and worst luxury purchases, then make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe down below if you haven't done so yet, and keep on watching. I have done so many of these ranking videos. I'm sure you are going to be familiar with this format, but we are using the same tier maker app that I always use. Of course, we are going to go from my best purchases to my least favorites. So on top, we have Holy Grail. These are the pieces that I'm really glad I parked my money in, things that I would definitely consider repurchasing. Then we have worth the money. These are things that I'm glad I tried, but they are things that are more of an acquired taste. They are definitely not a necessity. Not that any of these luxury purchases are a necessity, but these are things that perhaps I would not reconsider, or perhaps things that I wouldn't consider buying again. Then underneath that, we have live without. These are the things that are okay. They're kind of just a map purchase. And then we have return or returned please, because I also included some things here that I unboxed and I told you I was unsure about. There are some things that I returned that I wanted to give you an update on. So obviously those are the things that I either returned, or if I didn't, I probably should have, because I don't feel I got my money's worth out of them. Now, without further ado, let's jump straight in and let's start with a definite holy grail. This is going to come as no surprise. I have my CELINE sneakers here, which I do buy a fresh pair of once or twice a year. My most favorite, most worn, most loved designer sneakers, designer shoes across the board are the CELINE CT04 sneakers. They are incredibly comfortable, they are really flattering, and they genuinely go with anything and everything. And when I say that, I actually mean it. I wear these shoes with sweats to the gym. I wear these for dog walking. I wear them to just hang out with friends and be out and about, but I have also worn them with full-on suits and tailored pants, and they just never look out of place. They are kind of a staple in my collection. I do have 3 different pairs going on right now. I have an older pair that I wear to the gym or when it's raining out, or something that I wear for dog walking. I have one that is slightly more beaten up, and then I always have a fresh pair that I wear with a more formal, more tailored look. So if I want to look really put together, those are the ones that I will reach for, and they are definitely a holy grail. I also think that they are quite reasonably priced for a pair of designer sneakers. I think they're currently, they do go up slightly in price every single year, so I should probably buy a fresh pair before the new year begins. I think they're currently around 650 euros, so they're not too expensive compared to other designer sneakers, but I definitely think that they are worth the money, especially considering how often I'm able to wear them, because when I tell you that I live in these sneakers, I actually mean it. Now moving on to another piece that you have heard me talk about before, which is the Constance 18 in box. This was not a new purchase in 2024, but I didn't have this back for a while because it was sent to the spa, so I did an updated review on this once it came back from the spa, and that's why I wanted to include it here. I basically scrolled through all the pictures in my phone, and I had a couple of pictures of this bag, so I thought I might as well include it here. It is definitely one of my favorite Hermes bags when it comes to Constance bags. You know, it took some time for the Constance bag to grow on me. Then I spent a couple of years hunting for the perfect Constance, and I do think that I found it with the Constance 18 in box. There's just something really special about the Constance in box leather in this particular size. Even though I have not been reaching for this bag and I do not see myself wearing any smaller bags anytime soon, I do think that it is an incredible investment piece. And if you are looking for a Constance bag, but one that feels a little bit more special and refined, I do think that adding a Constance in box leather to your collection would be incredibly special. Although keep in mind, it is going to be slightly more expensive, and Constance is extremely prone to scratches and marks. It's not delicate in that the overall structure of the bag is delicate, but the leather itself is very prone to developing scratches and marks. But thankfully, it is something that the Hermes spa can slightly refurbish for you, because the leather itself is really hardy and substantial. So there is a lot that can be manipulated by the right craftspeople, but it is going to cost you because the Hermes spa can be quite pricey. If you'd like to find out more about the overall experience and how the spa works, whether or not you need a receipt, how long it takes, how much it costs, I will make sure to have a video linked up here for you. Now moving on to a bag that is also very prone to scratches and marks. Here I have the Loewe Puzzle Tote bag, which I unboxed, I want to say a couple of months ago. I bought this bag specifically for going to school, which it is a great oversized, large and in charge tote bag, even though it does come in several different sizes. The Loewe Puzzle Tote I do prefer in some of the larger sizes, not the largest sizes, because those can feel like an IKEA shopping bag, but the larger sizes. So I would either opt for the large size or the medium size, depending on your height and how big of a bag you prefer. You do want to keep it proportionate. In my opinion, at least that's how I would approach it. But if you're looking for a great, easy, simple grab and go tote bag, this one is a good one to go for. One update that I can give you that I noticed, well, a couple of things. The leather itself is only available in one leather or in different canvas finishes, so it's available in denim. I've seen it in wool, but when it comes to the traditional leather options, it's only available in smooth calfskin, which does look really nice, but it is quite prone to scratches and marks. That is just the name of the game. It's something you have to be okay with. And then another thing is that even though it is a large bag, you cannot pack it to the brim because it doesn't really have a stronger, more substantial base. It doesn't even have like a proper base panel. Instead, the bag is made up of several different sheets of leather that are stitched together. So if you really pack this bag and it becomes quite heavy, the bottom of the bag will start sagging, which is something that you obviously want to be careful with. I don't think that you would pierce the bottom of the bag or that it would rip because of how well it is constructed, but in terms of the way it looks, it's just something that you have to keep in mind. For example, when I put a larger laptop in this bag or something a little bit more substantial, I can definitely see the bottom of the bag sagging. So that is just something for you to keep in mind. But other than that, it is a great everyday grab and go tote. And if it's something that would fill a gap in your collection, I don't think it's something that you can go wrong with, especially considering the price. It is, I think, the large size is just over $2,000, which for a designer bag and how often you would be able to use it, I do think is pretty reasonable. As much as I love my CELINE CT04 sneakers, I did try to play around with different styles, and I definitely went through a phase of experimenting with loafers. I was very much inspired by the rose eelskin loafers, which I could not get my hands on. So I ended up buying 2 loafers from Hermes this year. I had bought some more traditional loafers from Hermes in years prior, but this year I tried 2. The first one were the Crocor loafers, which took me a month to get my hands on. You may remember that it was a whole thing. I basically tried to get them through my boutique, but my boutique didn't have them in the right size. They had to transfer them from another store, but they accidentally ordered the wrong size. To this day, I still don't know if they asked for the wrong size or if they sent the wrong size. By the time those arrived, I tried them and realized that they are the wrong size. The right size was out of stock. So then I had to wait for the right size to come back in stock, and it was just a whole ordeal. What matters is that I ended up getting my hands on these sneakers. And as cool as they are, in case you're not familiar with the Gregor loafers, they are a more sort of rock and roll urban take on their iconic Paris loafers, which I also own the Paris loafers, actually in a really similar colorway. I own the Paris loafers in black suede with black hardware, and then the Gregor loafers I picked up in black leather, again with a tone-on-tone hardware. Now, I am not the biggest fan of the Paris loafers. They are just way too pointy for my liking. I do prefer the Gregor loafers, but they're just not something that I am personally able to take advantage of on a regular basis. They're quite chunky, which gives them a little bit more of a casual look, which I do appreciate, but because they are a loafer, they still feel a little bit more formal than something like a pair of sneakers would. But I feel like it doesn't matter rain or shine, it doesn't matter where I'm going, I will always opt for the CELINE CT04 sneakers as long as I have the option. So they're a cool look, and if you're a fan of loafers, if you feel like loafers suit you, they are definitely a fun piece to have in your collection. But I would say I could have gone without these. And there's another pair of loafers that I picked up from Hermes this year, which is a completely different look. They are a lot more traditional, and if I had to choose between the two, I would say that the Gregor loafers were a little bit of a more unique investment, a better purchase, because they're not something that you see quite as often as just a regular old pair of loafers. I am not going to go into too much detail when it comes to the Trinity ring from Cartier, because I have just talked about this in my last video on my current collection of designer fine jewelry. Long story short, I do still love this collection and this design, but I ended up returning just the classic Cartier Trinity ring in white gold and black ceramic, because I would like to pick this up in the pavé version, but considering how these pieces don't really hold their value, I would prefer to pick it up on the pre-loved market, just because you can save so much money on these. Once I realized how much less expensive they are on the pre-loved market, I could never look back, and I could just not justify walking into the store and getting one of these pieces brand new, because you can get them for like half the price. So I'm going to wait for the right color and the right size to pop up on probably Fashion File. I think that's the site that I am going to turn to for pre-loved designer fine jewelry. But if you are looking for just a really classic, simple ring to add to your collection, perhaps to stack with other pieces that you already own, there is nothing wrong with the Trinity range. I still very much like that classic understated design, but it is something that I ended up returning just because personally I do prefer a little bit more of a sparkle. Another piece that ended up getting returned is the CELINE wicker basket, which I bought for a trip to Italy, I want to say in the spring. I went to Italy in April, so I must have bought it in like March or something. As much as I loved the idea, I just really did not feel like that this style suits me, so it ended up going back. And also it did feel quite cheap. Not that it is necessarily an expensive bag, but it was still quite a few €100, and I didn't feel that it was something that I would have been able to take advantage of often enough. Not to mention that it just looked really out of character for me. Another bag, however, that was a surprise offer earlier in the year is the Kelly Pochette in ostrich in the color Nata, which is definitely one of the most beautiful Hermes bags I have ever seen. Every time I see this bag, I am just completely blown away by its beauty. I am not big on ostrich. I'm actually quite picky with ostrich. It really depends on the color that it's offered in, but ostrich in Nata, especially in this style and in this size, I think it is just a stunning bag. So I would say that it is not only worth the investment, but it is, I would say that it is one of the most beautiful Kelly Pochettes I have ever seen. Even though, again, I am not really reaching for any one of these bags. I just don't really feel that they, at this point, feel really me, but I do still very much appreciate the design and the artistry of these bags. Now, another pair of sneakers, white sneakers, believe it or not. I clearly have a type. I am trying to find something different because obviously I do love my CELINE CT04 sneakers, but I would like to have a little bit more variety in my collection. So I did try to get sneakers from Hermes quite recently. And obviously it is my job to review Hermes pieces for you and give you my suggestions on what to buy and what to avoid. But in this case, you guys actually beat me to it because these sneakers have been around for just about a year, a little over a year. I think the Get sneakers first launched for spring summer 2023. And at first I wasn't the biggest fan because these shoes first launched in canvas, and I am not a big advocate of canvas sneakers, especially not when it comes to white sneakers, because white sneakers I'm already struggling to keep clean in leather. I really do not want to play around with canvas because canvas is so difficult to treat and clean that I do not want to risk it. So personally, when it comes to white sneakers, I will always opt for white sneakers in full leather, not in canvas. But when they launched these sneakers earlier this year in leather, I wanted to give them a try because I do actually really like this sort of retro vintage gymnast look. But when I unboxed these, I want to say a month ago, has it been a month? Not sure if it's been that long, but a little while ago, so many of you told me that they are some of the most uncomfortable designer shoes that you have ever tried. And I have to confirm that's been my experience as well. As soon as I saw those comments, I tried them on at home and I started wearing them around my living room, and I'm so glad I did because let me tell you, the heel on these shoes, or like the edge of the heel, genuinely felt like a razor blade against my skin, even though I had a pair of socks on. So I ended up sending these shoes back, and there is another pair that I'm going to be picking up from Hermes later this week. There are 2 pieces that I'm going to pick up, including this new style of shoes, which I can't remember what they are called. They are a new style, which are currently only being offered in leather, but I'll make sure to put a picture up here, or you know what, I'll do an unboxing. So stay tuned. I am going to be giving another pair of sneakers a try, but these ones are not something that I kept in my collection. And thank you so much to you guys for giving me a heads up about these. Now, another more recent luxury purchase, which I'm pretty sure I shared in the same video where I shared the Get sneakers, is actually a candle. I know that some of you really enjoy hearing some of my more lifestyle related recommendations. If you know me, you know that scented candles and fancy candles are kind of my love language. I always have candles burning in my apartment. Currently, I have one of my favorite scents from Fine Scents Burning, which is Mayfair Affair. But I recently discovered Glossier's candles, which are not new. They've been around for a while. I just have not given them a try until more recently, and I'm so glad I did because I am obsessed with the Glossier You scent. I have always loved the Glossier You fragrance. I do think it is iconic for a reason. But for me personally, as a personal scent, it is just a little bit too soft and delicate. But as a home scent, it is stunning. So I would say that it is really quickly becoming a holy grail scent for me. And if you are also into luxury candles, I would highly suggest giving it a sniff. I also love the vessel that it comes in. It comes in this beautiful scarlet red jar, which I do think is quite special. So I am just a big fan of that particular scent. Moving on to a bag that I was kind of brainwashed into liking, which is the Chanel 22 bag. Now this is something that I have 2 reviews on. I was initially lent this bag to try and review, and in my original review I said that it is a really cool bag. I can see how it would fill a gap in your collection if you are a Chanel lover, but at the time I did not see myself spending the money on this bag, and then I think I just kept seeing this bag over and over again, and I could not resist the temptation. So a few months later, I ended up doing another review on it, which completely changed my mind, and this bag is still sitting in my wardrobe. I have not been reaching for it quite as much because the only bag I'm really using these days is my Lululemon gym bag, just because, I mean, really, I don't do that much. All I do is work from home. I go to school, go to the gym, come home and eat, take Pi on walks, and that is pretty much my life. So I really have not been reaching for any one of my designer bags. But if I had to pull one out right now, if you told me, hey, I want you to carry a designer bag today, I actually think that this is the bag that I would reach for first. So I have to say, in my opinion, with where I am in life, it is something that is worth the money because I do see myself using this a lot more than any one of my other bags. But if that's the criteria, I might have to move the Constance back down because, yeah, because the Constance, purely because of the style, it's something that I could live without. The reason the Kelly Pochette is so high up is genuinely because of how beautiful it is. But when it comes to practical, functional, user-friendly bags, things that I actually use and enjoy, I think the Louis Vuitton and the Chanel 22 bags are definitely my top tier purchases from 2024. Now, moving on to a bag that is anything but top tier, it is the Loro Piana Extra Pocket little bag charm, which I bought to put on my Birkin 35, which I ended up returning. I told you in my initial unboxing that I was kind of torn. As much as I loved the original Loro Piana Extra Pocket, they're not a bag that I would personally add to my own collection. I do not see myself carrying any one of the Loro Piana Extra Pockets, even though I will continue admiring them from afar. But because I have this passion for this bag, and I've had this passion for this bag for years, way before they became the next it bag, I wanted to add it to my collection in some shape or form. So when I realized that they're now doing a tiny little bag charm version of it, I wanted to give it a try. I love the fact that it was a fully functional bag, but it's just not something that I felt would really fill a gap in my collection or I would ever really use. So it ended up getting returned, but just like all Loro Piana pieces, I was blown away by the craftsmanship because a lot can be said about Loro Piana. They never cut corners when it comes to the quality, the construction, and the craftsmanship. And if you would like to learn more about Loro Piana, I do have a dedicated brand deep dive, which I would highly encourage you to check out. I not only have a brand deep dive on Loro Piana, but I think I even have a guide to all of their most popular bags, which you can, of course, all check out. Now moving on to two more purchases from Hermes. There is a pair of sneakers here, which if I remember correctly are called the Jet sneakers. These were a 2024 launch. They are available both for men and women in a ton of different finishes in either parachute nylon or suede. And they, similar to the Guess sneakers, have a really cool sort of vintagey low profile vibe. I will make sure to have a video linked up here for you with mod shots and with more details. But I do have to say that they are a really, really fun style to consider from Hermes. And I would say that they are worth the money. They are nowhere near as much of a holy grail design as my CT04 sneakers, but they are a cool design to look into from Hermes, but they don't come anywhere near my CT04 sneakers. And then my most recent, more substantial purchase from Hermes is of course the Kelly Elan clutch bag in the color bamboo in goatskin. And I did get a few questions on how this bag compares to the Kelly Pochette. I do think that in terms of how they look, they can add a similar facet to your collection, but I do think that the Kelly Elan feels a little bit more casual and a little bit more laid back than the Kelly Pochette does, purely because of the proportions. So the Kelly Elan is a little bit longer, it is more elongated, it's more narrow and shallow. It does not feature a top handle, instead it comes with a shorter removable strap, which does not allow you to put this bag on crossbody, but if you want to, you can carry it over your shoulder, which personally I would not. To me, that makes this bag feel just a little bit too feminine. So when it comes to me styling this bag, I would exclusively carry this handheld, which is actually the same way I would carry a Kelly Pochette handheld. So in my collection, they do very similar things, but to me, the Kelly Elan feels a little bit more casual. I think it is easier to style if you are trying to wear it on a daily basis. But surprisingly, thinking about it now, I actually think that the Kelly Pochette is just a little bit more user-friendly because it is a little bit softer, and it is more pliable, meaning that it is just a little bit easier to get things in and out of and easier to pack. Because even though the Kelly Elan is a little bit longer, it is, because it's so narrow, you kind of have to maneuver and strategize how you're going to fit things into it, whereas the Kelly Pochette, especially if you have an insert inside, is quite a user-friendly bag to have in your collection. I think it just really depends on what you're looking for. I can see why Kelly lovers would appreciate both styles, but I would approach it like this. If you are looking for a bag that you can use on a very regular basis, something that you can use daily, something that feels a little bit more casual but can also be dressed up, the Kelly Elan is a great one to look for. But if you have a little bit more of a formal style, if you prefer a more petite design, then the Kelly Pochette is the one that I think you would appreciate. And I would add that the Kelly Pochette feels and looks a little bit softer, yet has a more formal look, whereas the Kelly Elan looks more structured, yet it feels more casual and lived in. Usually it's the other way around, but that has been my experience with these two bags. So the biggest difference is the structure, the size, but I do think you would be able to fit a similar amount into both of these bags, because one might be a little bit longer but it's more narrow, whereas the other one is shorter but it is a little bit wider. The Kelly Pochette comes with a top handle, whereas the Kelly Elan comes with a strap, which I would not consider a handle or a full-on strap either. So in my case, both of these are handheld bags, but the Kelly Pochette to me feels a little bit more formal, whereas the Kelly Elan just feels a little bit more easygoing. But personally, you know, perhaps it's because of the color or because of the leather, it is kind of a bag that I could have gone without. I'm really glad that I had a chance to try it and play around with it, but it has definitely not become an essential part of my collection. And then last but not least, something that I did not buy, and I'm so mad at myself for not doing that. I first saw this piece in London, which I vlogged the experience. Here we are talking about a Chanel cashmere sweater with the CC details on the shoulder. So I discovered this piece in London, tried it on, loved it, but they did not have it available in the right size. So I was going to reach out to my local Chanel boutique to try to get it, also because it was less expensive in Europe than it was in the UK. So I was going to get this, but it just slipped my mind, and I don't know if it slipped my mind or I did not want to put the effort into getting it, or I also saw this in July and I was like, you know, it's not really the season for this. I'll try to get it later on. I never did, and now when I asked, this piece is no longer available, but I wanted to include it here because it was on my phone. So I thought, you know, I might as well shed a tear here over this piece with you guys, and it's kind of a shame that I did not put more effort into trying to hunt this down, because it is, I feel like it's one of those pieces that got away. So perhaps it's something that will be available again one point down the line, although I know that if it comes back next season or the season after, it is going to be significantly more expensive. So, you know, I don't know where to put this. I mean, I would love to put it under Holy Grail because I know that it's something that I would have gotten a lot of wear out of, but since I don't own it, you know, it's hard to say, but it is definitely one of those pieces that I do still think about every now and again. It's definitely something that I regret. Speaking of regret, please let me know in the comment section if there are any pieces that you regret either buying or not buying this year. I would love to hear about your ranking. What are the best luxury purchases that you made in 2024 and what are the worst ones? I cannot wait to learn from your experiences. And do you agree with my ranking? I cannot wait to continue the conversation in the comment section. And while you're down there, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. I really appreciate you being here and watching, and I cannot wait to see you back here with a new video really, really soon.